Now, I'm going to tell you right now, this is a crazy tape. This is a tape of a conference that occurred in June of 1971, and then again in December of 1971. It contains recordings of some of the phone freaks from the original gang described in the Esquire article. But because of the conference's location, there are also ordinary people calling into it by accident. The freaks in this segment are me.
We can ring their phones if they cross bar 1.
Bill from New York.
I dialed 763 official 90. That didn't answer.
And Denny from San Jose.
I don't have the number of the test board. You'll have to get the number of the test board so they can pull a card.
The Esquire article had a character named Randy who was based on Denny.
Hey, is Bill on here?
Yeah, sure am.
Yeah, Bill.
I'll tell him to call you, okay?
I forgot to mention
Yeah.
I didn't forget to mention that.
I'm staying on the line.
Bill?
Yeah?
I didn't discover it till last night. 201763 is also gone, so that brings her down to 15.
What's wrong with it?
Filter?
Oh, no.
What number is it?
Did you get King's
Hey,
new
that's
number
an
yet?
idea. Why don't you try calling the switch room now, see if there's anyone there, although I doubt there is, because they're only manned till 5 on the weekdays.
No.
Okay, I'll give that a try. Is King, did you get King's new number?
No, I didn't. I don't have the number of the test board. You'll have to get the number of the test board so they can pull a card.
Oh, I see.
Who's out there?
It's probably standard. If you can find one of the Seattle phone freaks, they can tell you.
Yeah, okay.
You have to try for 763, so you can get that thrown back.
Hello.
What do I ask for?
What?
What do I ask for?
I don't have the EMT and the mounting place.
Number 96.
So I don't mean that I mean
on the mutual.
And you want one of his miscellaneous trunk frames somewhere on one of the mounting plates. There should be a key, NOR and LCT.
No.
Throw it. He'll probably know where it is.
I mean, man, I know that. I didn't mean that. I meant the mutual.
Oh, okay.
What do I ask for?
Okay, have them pull you a line card on 682-1132. Okay, on the old King number. Doesn't matter that we gave that out because it's not working anyway. And have him pull you a line card on that. When he gets the line card, ask him for the line location on it. When you get the line location, call the 682 switch room and give the guy the line location, and he'll get you the number on it.
Sounds dandy. I'll do it.
Okay.
Hello?
Who's Jim Dandy?
Hello?
Try for 763 if you can.
Okay, well, that's been ringing. I rang that. It's not answering.
What?
I dialed 763 official 90. That didn't answer.
Didn't answer, huh?
Yeah, I just tried it.
Okay, there's no one in there today, so go ahead and try King. You should
Hello?
come over there.
Hello.
Any guy 17? Yeah. I said any guys?
Yeah.
You interested in a 17-year-old girl? Huh? Hello?
Hello?
Any guy 17 interested in a 17-year-old girl? Yeah. Yeah, sure, you sound like you're 10.
Yeah.
No, not you, the other guy that... Wait, who's 17? I think he's mixed up to him. Hey, Doorbell.
Yeah.
Is that you?
Yeah.
Fucking no. Sorry, you're a motherfucker.
So what's going on here? Well, there are 4 groups of people on this line, each with a different agenda. First of all, there's Dave Bell and myself. We are 14 years old. We have just been introduced to the Phone Freak clan as of about 2 months ago. By the way, Dave recorded most of these tapes, and I recorded some of this. Anyway, Dave and I are having a great time because we have discovered that on this conference we have the ability to find out the telephone number of certain of the callers to the conference. And the way this happens I'll explain in a little bit. But this is 1971, about 20 years before caller ID. So the idea that you could get someone's number within a minute of their calling into a conference like this, when they aren't even making a direct connection to you to trace, is truly mind-boggling. And so Dave Bell and I are busy doing that. We're tracing numbers right and left. Meanwhile, Bill from New York wants to fill the conference up with the phone freaks, and so he's trying to get different phone freaks on the line. And now that some of the freaks know where Bill is hanging out, they, instead of calling Bill's mother's telephone number, they just call into the conference and say, "Hey, Bill, are you there?" So that's what Bill's up to. Also, there are people who used to use a conference which I had started 2 months ago and which ended in late April 1971, and they are now discovering this line and calling into it and trying to make dates and stuff. And then finally, there are the people who stumble into it accidentally, who are just trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And that's who's who in the zoo, and a zoo it is.
Hey, Bill!
Who is this, man? Who is on the phone? I'm gonna put my sister up the road. No, man, who are you?
Who are you? Hey, Bill. Doorbell.
Hey, Whitey, baby, you wanna die?
Hey, doorbell.
You
what?
Oh, shut up now, you
Yeah?
Whitey.
I'll kick your fucking ass and...
You fucking man.
Yeah, come here and say it. I'll kick your asshole.
Hey, you wanna fly, man?
Where's it? You name it. You name the spot.
The last digit of your number begins with a N7.
Doorbell.
I'd scare them off.
Bill.
Hey, Bill, I got another number. Oh? 352-8311. Yeah, you missed one, by the way. Well, I got one now. Believe it or not, we shanghaied the second TSP operator. Oh, my God. Anyway, check that out, right? FL28311. Keep your thing on. They're really coming in like flies.
Hi, Bill.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Okay, who's there?
John.
Oh, you made it back.
Hey, Gail. You still talking to Jack?
Crossbar one idiots. I wish I could grab some of those crossbar one
Hey,
idiots
Bill.
and wring their necks.
Bill.
Well, we can ring their phones if they're crossbar one. Well phrased. We're gonna pull a line card on Barry tomorrow. Yeah. Good.
Why do you have to do that?
Get the number.
Why do you want the number?
Curiosity.
You gonna give it out to everybody?
No.
Good. Hey, doorbell.
Yeah.
What is this number? 682-1132.
It's the number of the thing.
I can't believe it.
I can't either.
That's
I got it
number
the
one.
first time, both times.
Hey, doorbell. Doorbell.
Yeah.
There used to be a party line on Nervous. Like it's in other words, it's the time. Like you call the time number. It used to be a party line.
But it hangs up on you within a minute and a half.
No, it doesn't.
Sure does.
No, it doesn't. I called in. They go at the time. The tone will be,
But-
and they keep on saying.
After a minute and a half, it dumps.
Hey, Bill.
Yeah.
So,
And you charge for that, too.
I know you do, so that's why I don't call it. But anyway, after a minute and a half is up at the party line.
Hey, where
After a
do
minute and a half is up, you get a dial tone.
Oh,
Where's Jim? Where's Jim?
people they're from Greenwich Village on here.
doorbell.
What?
Is Bill
Where
there?
does
Oh,
this
God,
come
you need to cut that line, will you?
Who's there?
Doorbell?
Hey, Bill.
Yeah.
What does 682-1132 mean?
It's the number for the thing.
What
Never
thing?
mind. That thing.
Bill,
Yeah.
were you able to get the new King number yet, or have you tried?
I haven't tried yet.
Doorbell.
Trying to Seattle phone freaks to wait. You know what that's like at this time?
Doorbell.
Well, you can call the 682 food room and ask him for the test number.
I'd rather only grab them once. You know what?
It's 0010.
Yeah, I have that.
Yeah, you can just call him and ask him for it.
Yeah. I hope we can get some freaks on here in a hurry.
Why?
Because it's kind of low in occupancy, and I'd like to see that happen.
Well,
Because the more freaks...
Why don't you just call 0010 and ask him?
well. Hello?
Stand by while I try
Hello?
to pick up a
Hello?
freak.
Hello? Hello? What's your
Let me
name?
see if I can pick up a
Mary
freak.
Jane. Oh, come on, really. What's your name? What? What's your name? 108. Well, what's your name? Your real name? Oh, my real name? Yeah, yours. Oh, you're a boy. Yeah. 10 years old. I'm 116. Hold on, what? 10 years old. There's some guys on. Any guys interested in a 17-year-old girl? Yeah. You're not 17. Yeah. Yeah, you want that?
Now at this point, Dave Bell, whose handle is the controller, is about to dial back into the conference. And here's the way it sounds from his point of view. Notice that as soon as he connects, I call him by name, as if I somehow knew it was him.
Hold on,
Hey,
what?
is Jim there by any...
Controller. George, any luck?
How did I know it was him? Well, let's listen to the same thing from the point of view of those who were on the conference already.
Doorbell. I know, nice.
Hey, you know,
You are so. Hold on,
hey,
what?
is Jim there by any chance? Controller. George, any luck?
That's right, the tones are Dave's number spilling out onto the line. Dave can't hear the tones, but everybody else can. The tones of Dave's number are familiar to me by this point, and so when I hear them, I know it's him. Now, why are some people's phone numbers being MF'd out onto the line and others not? That has to do with where this conference is. This conference should be a vacant code recording. In fact, everybody here ought to be hearing this.
I'm sorry. We are unable to complete your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator for assistance. This is a recording. 5166.
But instead, they're hearing each other. This is the recording for Hempstead Tandems number 2 and 3. Tandem 3 is the main outgoing toll tandem for Nassau County. So now, anybody in Nassau County who dials an invalid number in the toll network, which Hempstead catches, goes into the conference instead of getting a recording. And if they're calling from a Crossbar 1 office, their phone number ends up getting MF'd into the conference. The reason for that is that the Crossbar 1 is sending the phone number forward to Hempstead, because Hempstead has a function known as CAMA, Centralized Automatic Message Accounting, which it does for the Crossbar 1s. This means that the Crossbar 1s don't have to make a record of the toll call, because Hempstead does that. The MF'd phone number would normally be picked up by equipment in Hempstead Tandem 3, but because they've dialed an invalid number, Hempstead just plops them right into the conference, not bothering to listen for the phone number. Instead, we're listening for it, with a tape recorder running. Once those tones are on tape, they can be more easily decoded, and the method we're using to decode them is a bit silly, as I'll explain in a few minutes.
Doorbell. Yeah? Doorbell. Hey, doorbell.
What?
Hey, doorbell.
What?
What? I talked to Jack. Where's Jack? He's not on there.
Oh, Jack's not on? Okay.
Gail, that's not doorbell. I know.
Well, good evening, everybody. This is California on the line from San Jose. Hello, can you hear me? Over.
Yeah, I can hear you.
You're distorted.
Thank you very much.
You better crank it out.
Amplifier. We are calling from California, where it's a very warm 70 degrees.
Oh, sure.
California. Yeah. Turn yourself down. We're trying to pick up the MS, so keep your amplifier down or off. Certainly.
Hey, California.
Hey, Jim.
That's a funny sound.
What is that?
I've heard that before. Sounds like the Lennon sisters.
Yeah, really sunny.
San Jose.
Oh, San Jose. What's your number?
So that's where it's at. San Jose. Turn yourself down.
Hey, get Barry from Memphis.
Certainly. How's that?
I'm waiting on it. Hey, doorbell, Barry's on already.
Barry?
Yeah. He's calling me. Who's calling Barry? He's on.
I'm calling Barry. Is he here?
Yeah. Not me, I'm his
Tell me
sister.
up it.
Hello?
Yeah.
Where are you?
Jim.
I'm in heaven.
Jim.
Keep your amplifier down. Is it distorted? No, it's turned around.
Hey,
Thank you.
Jose.
We can't pick up the tone. Can you trace me? Where are you from?
New York.
Manhattan.
Jim?
Nope. Who's being traced? How come?
The reason you wanted down, they're tracing 501 people from Manhattan.
Hey,
You
San
can't
Jose.
trace me. Keep yourself down, California.
Hey, San Jose. Don't you answer?
That's not my name.
Okay, what's your name?
Weston.
Oh, Weston, okay. How old are you? Weston.
I'm 17.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Jim. Bill.
Oh, Bill.
Bill. Yeah.
Her name is Gail. Dale.
Bill. Long distance. I'm losing money. Bill.
He's not calling Gail, he's calling Bill.
I'm losing money, am I? Hey, Bill. Yeah. Have you found somebody yet? I think I'll move to Hempstead. Am I losing money? No. I hope nobody's being traced, because that's a bummer. When the Crossbar 1 connect, we get the number. The number out here is area. No, I won't give it out here.
No, Jim, really, they can trace number 1 people. Actually, it's in Manhattan.
What'd you say?
Is Barry there? It's in Manhattan. They can trace number
Who
1
wants
people.
Barry?
I want Barry.
I want Barry.
I want an
Hey,
apple.
Lester,
What's your number?
Lester.
I want a host of apple pie for you, Barry.
What's that? I'm I'm going to get that number right there. Whoever just got on, I'm going to get your number. 107.
Have you got a headache yet? Well, a number has just come in, and the question is how to decode it. Well, the easiest way to decode it for me nowadays is to just play it over and over and listen to the tones like this. It's a 285 number. 2858. Sounds like 285-823 something. 285-8237. But in 1971, my ear wasn't that good, and so we used another method. Step 1, call a non-working number in Syosset. Syosset is a town east of where I live, which is perfect for this purpose because the connections between me and it are not 2600 controlled, but the connections between it and where it sends its non-working numbers are. And if you call up a non-working number and ring a 2600 bell like I have, the automatic intercept system itself resets.
The number you have reached, 9.
Now that the intercept trunk is reset, we can play a tape of MFs, and Jane Barbie will come back and do the announcement for whatever number we specify.
The number you have reached, 900-0000, is not in service. Please check the number and dial again.
That was an absurd number, of course, but the tones from the conference, if played into AIS that way, did the same thing. It would put the person's phone number in a pseudo-intercept report like the one you just heard. That's how we decoded the numbers. The only difference between what I was doing and what Dave was doing is that Dave was resetting the Syosset AIS trunk by blowing across the top of an accountant fine point pen, and I was ringing my bell. And it was especially funny because there was a coincidence between the protocol for CAMA and the protocol for AIS that meant that the tones were already in the perfect format for doing exactly this. It was Bill who first figured this out.
Whose number is 285-8237?
Richard. How old are you?
14.
Oh, no good. Too bad.
I'm 14 too.
Well, you're too young. Or rather, I'm too old.
That's better.
That's a lot.
How about 16?
No, I'm 17.
Oh, well.
Sorry. Oh, sorry. Hey, Weston. What number did you get here?
I dialed, I dialed on the phone. What number?
What number? Hello?
It was in the 516 area code.
Oh, that's where I am.
Yes, back in Hempstead, right?
Oh, Doorbell's Tracy again.
Hey, what number are you?
I love to hear tones.
Doorbell, how many you traced today?
Bye.
Is there any Nazis on the phone?
What? Is anybody in the 80s there? Oh.
Right there, no, right there. I'm 81. The blanket. Hello? I'm back.
Hello.
Yeah, this is the refrigerator.
I'm from West Hempstead.
What's your name?
Gwen.
Doorbell, this is Swinging Gate. I'm from Hempstead.
Oh, what's your name?
Doorbell, Swinging Gate.
What?
Swinging Gate.
Yeah.
All right, everybody off the line. This is the police. Oh, good for the police.
Hello.
Hey, Gwen. It's the police. Everybody off the line. Kathy?
Question: what happens when a 17-year-old phone freak tries to be a good Samaritan on a conference? Answer:
I want to know where I'm speaking to.
Oh, you're speaking to Long Island, somewhere in Long Island.
Hempstead.
What number do you want to reach?
Where about Long Island?
What number would you like to reach?
I'm trying to reach Juniper 6.
One moment, I'll dial it. What's the last four? One moment.
I'm sorry. We are unable to pick you up on the dial. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator for assistance.
Who's trying to reach 586?
The one from Levittown. Is she on there? No, I'm not from Levittown. Oh, it might be.
What do you want to reach? 586 what? I'll connect you.
I'm trying Juniper 6.
Juniper 6 what?
Well, who are you?
I'll connect you if you tell me what digit.
This is a party line, lady. There are different numbers to this party line.
Lady, there's all different party lines with each section of town.
Yes, I know, but I don't want to get charged for a call.
You won't get charged.
Hey, Mick.
Hey, lady, this guy can put your regular call through and you won't be charged.
Unit 69149.
Coming up. Hey, Bill, she's not going to be able to hear anything over there. Bill.
Okay, all you people on the line, please cooperate by shutting up.
You won't hear anything over that high. It's just not loud enough.
It's worth a try.
Black this scale. You hear it ringing?
Francis? Francis?
Hello?
Billy?
Oh, hi.
Where the hell are you?
I can't hear. Where are you?
I don't know. What kind of a connection have I got?
You've got a free connection.
I got a free one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, Bill.
Yeah?
Not you, lady.
Oh.
You're talking through the party line.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Where are you calling? There's like about 8 people on there.
Oh, my God. Francis?
Yeah?
What are you doing?
Nothing. We're just sitting here. You coming out?
I just want to ask you if you want to come out for dinner.
No, thanks. It rocks.
I can't hear you.
It's beautiful here.
Well, it's not so nice here.
It's beautiful. The sun is shining.
Oh, well, listen, if you want to come out for dinner, come on down. Franny is coming out.
What are you making for dinner?
Will you shut the hell up?
Oh, yeah? Well, okay, listen.
Shut up.
If you decide to come, we'll be here.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
I don't know what kind of a connection I got, and I wonder what I'm getting charged for this call.
You ain't.
Sorry, lady.
How can I tell?
Well, on your next bill, that call will not be there.
Doorbell.
Yeah.
It's you.
What? Yeah, this is doorbell.
Oh,
Where's Bill?
Francis?
Okay.
All right, I'll talk to you. There's 20 people on this line.
Is 107 on?
Yeah.
Yeah. 107. That's who it is.
Of course not.
Okay, so long.
Bye-bye. Coming call.
Bye-bye.
It's impossible to charge for incoming
107.
call.
Is 13 on?
67 is on.
What about 13?
I don't know where it is.
Hey, where's Control?
Hey.
Controller isn't on.
I know Control's name.
Who was calling 107 before?
Yeah.
So, you don't remember putting that call through for the lady, huh?
I don't remember anything about that day.
Comparing memories now with Bill from New York.
I seem to have bridged the line together. Did 800-426
423.
I don't think so.
Well, maybe my ear is failing me. Do you know somebody in Seattle whose number is 362-6594?
Oh, how about 364-5694? How does that sound?
Ah, you know what?
That's Bob Gudgel. And that I can tell you for certain. Oh, so what I did was added Bob on.
You tried.
Oh,
You
duh.
tried to.
I tried to. Okay, yeah, that's Bob. Clearly, he's still hanging out.
Wow. I was trying to communicate for the documentary about how funny it was that the tones for the CAMA worked so well for AIS.
Yes.
There's a protocol that the phone number for CAMA is sent with a 0 first.
And happily, in AIS, it's one digit plus the number. And depending on the digit, would depend on whether you were allowed to query the database for a report or just give a canned recording. I can't help wondering if that came about because in the smaller step-by-step offices they seem to use the same equipment for A&I as they did for AIS, and it makes me wonder now that I think about it, if that just made it easier. You want some sort of steering digit.
The idea of just having a steering digit at all.
Yeah, it was just something that they thought that they may have been thinking ahead.
Yeah.
But now that I have a better understanding of how this stuff works, I used to have this crazy impression that things just happen. Oh, let's do this one morning, and so they did it. And of course now I'm aware that there's a lot of planning that goes into everything they do.
Yeah. This was the only AIS in the world at the time this was being made.
That's true. Yes, that's very true.
Well, this is the first place actually where I ever heard the expression bummer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, common enough. Denny and Jim and Rich Caesar and all those people used to say bummer a lot.
Yeah, it's this.
What a bummer.
Yeah. I never heard it before this conference, actually.
Yeah. Funny, Denny never MF'd.
He never did.
No, his approach was loop arounds and creating demonstrators and whatnot.
That is amazing. I had no idea.
No.
So
never
how did he, when he called the switch room, was he like, paying for it?
Oh, now there's an interesting question. How did he manage to call all those switch rooms? Well, that would explain why he handed that off to me. Jim is in Kansas City now.
Really? Jim
Yes.
Weston?
Yeah.
What was his angle on phreaking anyway?
Miscellaneous conferences, I guess, was his favorite thing. I don't think he ever MF'd either. There was this funny feeling among the Phreaks, I think, that if you didn't, the MFing was a lot like the F word. If you can avoid saying the F word, you're not really over the line.
Right.
But if you MF, that was just, that was just a great step into the great illegal enterprise.
Yeah. So they'd hang out on conferences and...
They'd hang out at conferences and, if they get lucky enough to find touch-tone demonstrators, they would use those.
Now, as for why this darn thing occurred, and they did it again 6 months later.
Yeah, and you drop into this conference, there's no ringing, there was no audible ring, there was nothing.
Yeah.
I have no idea what goes wrong, and it wasn't like we saw, oh, hey, Chattanooga's doing it now. It seemed to be a Hempstead thing.
Yeah, I still don't understand how it happened. They must have... There had to be a major failure. There had to be. Maybe just the power to the whole miscellaneous frame was off or something.
Yeah, and that somehow caused some relay not to cut you through.
Yeah, because...
But what connected you together?
Maybe you were in the place where that continuous ringtone should have been.
Surely we tried hollering over that, didn't we?
It was not...
But just in the same way that when dial tone fails, you get a conference.
Yeah, and it was not... The continuous ring that came on before the recording was not very talkable. I mean, you could hear tones beeping out over it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't crystal clear like this. Well, there's more of this crazy conference in the next segment, including a very famous phone phreak, coming up.